Welcome to New York's #2 sports show. The Yankees lose 3 of 4 to the Angels at Yankee Stadium, and they also end their 6-game losing streak. They lose the first 3 games of the series, and then they finally stop the bleeding. Went on way too long as they actually salvaged the last game, the 4th game. So the tone is still basically going to be the same, though. This is going to be more of a negative, uh, laden episode for the fact that, it was bad enough they got swept against the Red Sox. They got shut out the first 2 games of the series against the Angels. So they actually extended their scoreless streak to 30 innings, which finally was broken early in game 3 of this series. But a lot of things to discuss, most of them not great, but at least, they won the most recent game. They're on a 1-game winning streak, but that's not something to really hold your head high about if you're a Yankee fan right now. They are 43-31. The division race has certainly tightened up. As I'm recording this, the Rays are 2 games out, Blue Jays 3 out, and Red Sox 5 out. And coming to town is a Baltimore Orioles team that, probably dug themselves way too big a hole to come back, but they are, granted, last night they blew an 8-0 lead to the Rays, but they are playing a little bit more competitive brand of baseball. To me, that's a series that I was more concerned about, not so much the Angels series. The Yankees swept the Angels. The Angels don't have a very good lineup. Mike Trout's back, but even still, and the Yankee pitching did pretty well. Like the pitching has, even in this stretch, has been the one thing that's been pretty constant, but it doesn't matter because the offense has been totally, totally bad. And other facets of the game haven't been really firing on all cylinders either. Defense, base running, like it's all kind of in there, but the offense being as poor as it's been has been by far the main issue. So there is a lot to discuss. Up and down the lineup, it's been really bad. You're hoping that with this last game where the Yankees scored 7 runs, that maybe that gets them going. You hope. But it's too bad because, the Yankees really, up until this recent stretch, really had been a very good season. And I think, they'll move past this. I still think that the Yankees, this is going to be a playoff team. I still believe this is likely to be an AL East winning team, but it just does remind you of the flaws that they have and the ones that have, caused them to not exactly go the distance. Sort of the June swoon, summer issues, that seems to be a thing as well. But the Yankees, by and large, in recent years, have gotten off to really good starts the first few months of the season, and then they hit a bit of a tailspin. Hopefully, they got it all out of their system now, but we'll see. Let's get into it. Let's discuss transactions, because there was a lot of them, some more important than others. The first one being that Giancarlo Stanton was activated for game 1 of the series. Pablo Reyes, not surprisingly, was designated for assignment. So he made the team, had a small role as a versatile sort of guy that played every now and then, didn't do well. I think he'll probably latch on somewhere else, I would think. Is there a world where he goes down to AAA? Yes, there is. So maybe we see him again, but I also wouldn't be surprised, because again, he is one of those guys that, kind of has been in a bunch of teams in recent years. But Pablo Reyes off the roster and Giancarlo Stanton on. And the funny thing is that Stanton, and he's kind of known for at times, when he first comes back, it takes him a while to get going, looked really good. Started games 1, 2, and 4 of the series. Did have a pinch hit appearance in game 3, but Stanton, getting him back is really big. I think that he will help this lineup, and especially come playoff time. It's a matter of keeping him healthy. Wouldn't be surprising if there's another IL stint in his future, because we're so accustomed to it. But looks healthy. Obviously, it's going to be a pure DH role, but Stanton is back in the middle of the Yankee lineup, and definitely, gives them more right-handed punch, besides just, Judge and Goldschmidt, and Volpe, who we'll have a longer discussion about. Then, I believe it might have been after game 2, Scott Efros was sent down. Now, so he actually got an appearance, looked actually pretty good in the appearance. It was a scoreless inning where the Yankees were losing, I think maybe like 4-0 at the time. He gets sent down, and the Yankees activate JT Brubaker. He was someone that I believe was signed last season, but was coming off of, I guess, probably Tommy John surgery, coming off of, major surgery. And we'll see. He'll probably be a long man out of the bullpen, would be my guess. He, was a starter on the Pirates. Look, he didn't really put up great numbers. He was a starter for the Pirates for probably about 2 or 3 seasons. Um, and he is now on the roster, and we'll see, you know, what really comes of that. Again, I wouldn't expect much, but we'll see. And kind of as well, kind of on that same thought, like Marcus Stroman, he's on a rehab assignment. Like he probably isn't too far. He's probably coming back in the not too distant future either. So spots are kind of in some ways up for grabs. To take it a step further, Yari De Los Santos, who pitched at the very least in game three, um, after game three or before game four, whatever you want to call it, he gets placed on the IL with right elbow discomfort. Um, so that could be an injury that lasts quite a while. He was solid. His ERA was a lot better than I think the reality of the situation. Didn't get many strikeouts, a really, really bad whip. So I don't think this is a terrible loss for the Yankees. But look, you want to have as many arms at your disposal as you can. De Los Santos goes in the IL. And just for the game, the Yankees put on the roster a lefty, Javian Sandridge, didn't pitch, and then immediately got sent in into the game because, really good news, Luke Weaver is expected to be activated for the start of the Orioles series. So a really quick IL stint. I really, those hamstring injuries, I thought it was going to be longer. You had that Jeff Passan report of 4 to 6 weeks. He beat that easily. I mean, Luke Weaver was probably out maybe probably a little less than 3 weeks since the end of that Dodgers series. So that's really good news there. The one thing I'll say on that is, and it's really unfortunate, and give Devin Williams credit, he's been doing well lately, but Devin Williams may have gotten his closer role back, or at least kind of a 50-50 situation. If it were me, I'd put Luke Weaver right back in the ninth inning role. The way they're talking and the way that it kind of feels is that, Devin Williams might get his fair share of ninth inning opportunities. And so that's the conversation when it arises. But for now, we'll see what happens. So don't be surprised if Luke Weaver is not automatically the ninth inning guy, even though I think that he probably should be. So those are the transactions that occurred. Get a lot of them, got some, but more so good news on that front. More so, the likes of Stanton and soon to be Weaver coming back, which is nice. But let's go to game one. And game one, I think for me, is where most of my discussion points will come from. First off, the starting pitchers. Clark Schmidt may have had one of his best starts of his career. And when you can, in terms of an innings and earned run allowed standpoint, 7 2/3 innings for Schmidt, 4 hits, no runs, no walks, and 3 strikeouts. Only 3 strikeouts, but he almost goes 8 innings for a guy that isn't known for that. And he gets no run support. Nothing. The Yankees took their struggles from the Red Sox series, and carried it into the Angels series. For the Angels, it was Jose Soriano, who did have a really good outing the start before, but he pitched well. 7 innings, 6 hits, no runs, 1 walk, and 6 strikeouts for Soriano. Now, here's the big stat for the Yankees in this game, and it's an extra inning loss. They lost in 11 innings. It was bad fundamentals. We're going to try to dissect it as best we can. It's a 4-game series, so I kind of want to try to move through it. I mean, I don't think there's going to be much to discuss in some of the games, especially game 2, I think will be a quick one, but this one was another story. The Yankees go 1 for 18 with runners in scoring position. Quite honestly, should have really been 0 for 18. They gave Chisholm a hit in the 11th inning. I think they could have ruled that an error. It would have been the last out of the game, but it's awful regardless. 1 for 18. Completely unacceptable. More extra inning failures, even though the Yankees had been the best home team in extra innings since the ghost runner was implemented, and the worst team with on the road. I knew that they were pretty solid at home in extra innings. I didn't realize it was that good. But still, the Yankees this year in extra innings now, I believe, are like 1-5. So this was one that was right there for them to have as the home team, and they just could never grab it. The 2 odd players out, because that's what it is now. With Stan back, you will have basically two odd men out. This does not include, like, of course, JC Escarra, and more to that conversation is Ben Rice actually starts at catcher, his first MLB start at catcher in game three. But this doesn't include Escarra, and it doesn't include essentially Peraza, right? Peraza, he'll play for LeMahieu and to a lesser extent Chisholm Jr. every now and then. But what I'm talking about is more of that outfield DH first base mix. And the two players not in this lineup were Goldschmidt, who was out for two straight games. Because if you remember, he didn't start in game three against the Red Sox, and Dominguez as well. And Dominguez, he would not start games 1 and 4 of this series. It's going to be a bit of a balancing act, and people are not going to play that much. And, we'll see kind of who emerges out of that, I guess. And the lineup kind of took a different turn as the series went on. This lineup was more kind of what you're accustomed to from what it had been, where Grisham was leading off, and Rice was batting second, Judge third, so on and so forth, with Stanton batting fifth. Um, I kind of want to focus more later in the game. This was actually Aaron Judge. Aaron Judge had a solid game in this game. Surrounding it, though, was really bad. Although, he may have found something in game four, but really before and after, really bad on Judge's front. A lot of strikeouts, just not looking good. Really, really taking a hit. And those numbers are really, they're still out of this world amazing. But it's funny how that 400 stuff, it's amazing how far he kept it in the 390s. Now he's like, I believe, in the 360s, which again, he's only human, but he has been pretty bad. And so has everyone else been. But, second inning, Chisholm Jr. leadoff double, and they don't score. Volpe, Wells, and LeMahieu all get out, so nothing goes there. From there, no, not going to discuss that. Let's go straight to the eighth inning. And look, there may have been some things earlier to talk about, but again, like, there's a lot. It gets jam-packed towards the end. A two-out triple by Christian Moore, which Aaron Judge did not play the best way. He wasn't going to catch it. He dives for it, and it goes by him. Luckily, though, it doesn't cost them, as Fernando Cruz comes on and strikes out Zach Neto. That more, maybe, Judge was trying to get Schmidt through 8. Like, I'm not sure what he was thinking there, but he's just doing a little too much. But again, no harm, no foul. We go to the bottom of the 8th. They actually intentionally walked Judge with 2 out, no one on. I mean, Ron Washington's been very aggressive in terms of intentional walks, but Cody Bellinger flies out. So it ends up being the right move by Washington. Ninth inning, Devin Williams, it wasn't totally clean, comes in a scoreless game in the 9th, and he is able to work out of it. Let's just put it that way. And here's where it gets bad. Bottom of the 9th, Kenley Jansen comes on, and Giancarlo Stanton doubles off him. Stanton is clutch. He comes through in the 9th. They pinch run Dominguez. And that's a situation where Jazz Chisholm Jr.'s up, and he strikes out, and he's swinging as hard as he can. A bunt would have been very much in play there, and they didn't do it. I'm not saying it would have ended up being successful in the sense that you eventually have to run it, but the annoying thing is that Jazz in game 4 lays down a bunt single. It's actually the first bunt single of the season for the Yankees. So just the Jazz approach was awful, swinging as hard as he can and striking out. I mean, you pinch ran Dominguez. Then what happens? It's a bit of bad luck for the Yankees, although you're probably not ending up in a terribly different situation. And what I'll explain it as is Dominguez is running. Here's the annoying thing on the Volpe at bat. And again, Volpe's at bats really, really bothersome. Where was it? I believe it was the 2-1. Yeah, on a 2-1 pitch, Dominguez has the bag stolen and Volpe fouls it off on what was a ball. The few times Volpe gets ahead in the count, he gets so aggressive. His approach is just really hard to watch at the plate. And then what eventually happens is Volpe rolls one over to third as Dominguez is running, and it's perfect timing where Rengifo tags Dominguez out at third. Dominguez didn't do anything wrong there, just bad luck. However, if, let's say, Dominguez gets in at third, Rengifo probably throws Volpe out anyway. So it's not as if it would have been very unlikely for everyone to be safe in that situation. Volpe then does still second. So you get back into runners in scoring position, and Austin Wells strikes out. So, again, at that stand W, you got to get it done. They don't. Jonathan Loaisiga comes in the 10th, pitches a really good 10th inning. holds the, no one scores, and now the Yankees are set up for success. Runner on second, no out. And Ryan Zephyr comes on for Kenley Jansen. And Zephyr has not been good lately. It's kind of a step down in competition from Jansen in theory. And DJ LeMahieu doesn't get it done. Foul bunt, ball, and then they take the bunt off. He basically, it's a swinging bunt that goes foul on the 1-1, and then he strikes that swinging. So bad in terms of execution by LeMahieu, bad in terms of, team management and how they went about that to take the bunt off really didn't make a whole lot of sense considering that, LeMahieu, he hasn't been lighting the world on fire. So it made sense to do it. And then after he strikes out, then they pinch run Peraza for Austin Wells. And then you get the fly ball by Trent Grisham. And then you get the fly ball by Paul Goldschmidt. It's things were a step behind. And so now we go to the 11th. And Loaizaga, and by the way, JC Escar comes in that spot where Wells was pinch run for with Peraza. After a Zach Neto bunt pop out, Nolan Shanuel gets a double down the third base line. Chisholm wasn't really guarding the line. Shanuel kind of an excuse me sort of double. And so Loaizaga, who actually got into a little bit more trouble after that, escapes the jam. It became bases loaded, 1 out. Loaizaga's pitch count was up there, but he's able to keep it at 1-0. Loaizaga really did the job. I mean, in 2 innings, he gives up 1 unearned run. And so now Brock Burke comes on the lefty for the Angels, and they intentionally walk Judge, which, look, like it's a risky move, but it's a no-brainer move at the same time. Because you're putting on the winning run there, but they do it anyway, and it works. It ends up working out them. Here's the frustrating thing. Cody Bellinger hits a ball that looked off the bat like it might go out for a homer, but it only goes to the warning track. But it does advance Goldschmidt to third. So it's first and third, 1 out. So now as bad as it was a run as a score position, this was the first situation all game where they had runners on third, less than 2 out. Unfortunately, Stanton having been taken out, which is the right move, but Stanton having been taken out for a pinch runner ends up costing the Yankees here. And it ends up being Jason Dominguez as a righty. And Dominguez fouls off the first 2 pitches. That was his chance to get a sac fly. And then it's a broken bat over the mound, humpback sort of liner situation where Goldschmidt's thrown out at home. Unfortunate. I think Goldschmidt, I think he was worried that maybe he would be caught by the pitcher somehow. And I wish Goldschmidt got a little bit of better jump, but at the same time, I can't blame him much. Dominguez needs to do a better job there. He doesn't get it done. So now it's first and second, 2 out. And then here's where you get the runners in score position single by Chisholm Jr., which really should have been an error on Neto, in my opinion. Chisholm beats it out. Neto bobbled it. And now Hunter Strickland, the righty, comes on to face Volpe. And first pitch swinging in classic Volpe style, he tries to pull a pitch. That was a strike, but it was a little more on the outside. And right down third, Rengifo steps on the bag, and that's your ball game. One of the most frustrating losses. And at the time, ends up being the first Yankee 4-game losing streak of the season. So, remember how they hadn't been swept? That ended with the Red Sox sweep. Then they hadn't also had a 4-game losing streak. And then that was out the window here. Just one of the most frustrating losses. And I feel as if they carried it into the next game. They end up getting shut out in game 2 4-0. So, that's the thing with the shutout streak. You need to be specific with it. It ends up being a 30-inning shutout streak where you had 3 extra innings in the mix as well. 1 versus the Red Sox and 2 versus the Angels, where you have a runner on second. Just fucked up. Will Warren pitches game 2, pitched really well. I mean, 6 innings, 6 hits, 3 runs, no walks, and 11 strikeouts. The loss drops into 4-4, but no walks, 11 strikeouts is really impressive. Will Warren's shown a lot of good. Besides that Dodger outing, he's been pretty fantastic. And defense kind of hurts the Yankees here too, even though there were no errors charged. And we'll explain it once we get there. For the Angels, it was Kyle Hendricks, the former Cub, who's really struggled this year, but did well. 6 innings, 4 hits, no runs, 1 walk, and 9 strikeouts to improve to 5-6. Kyle Hendricks kind of got to get strikeouts. That was just awful. And in this game, the players that were out of the lineup were Ben Rice. Ben Rice was out for games 2 and 4. And then as well, it was Trent Grisham who would sit in game 2. So Giancarlo Stanton moves up to clean up a little bit of a different looking lineup in this one, where Goldschmidt bats sixth for the first time this season, I believe. And Volpe would bat eighth, which was lower than what we've seen recently. And Dominguez leading off, which was the first time we had seen that this year as well. And kind of the reason for that to me was because there was no Grisham or Rice. You could have done different things, but like I wasn't surprised given the options at that point in time, and Goldschmidt wasn't going to lead off versus a righty. Anyway, the Angels get on the board in the second. A two-out double by Logan O'Hoppe, and then an RBI single by Luis Rengifo on a play that LeMahieu needs to make. At the very least, LeMahieu needs to keep it in front of him, and then you live to fight another day where it becomes maybe first and third one out type situation. Instead, it's a 1-0 Angel lead. And it was not a good 0-2 pitch by Warren, to be fair. That was a mistake. It's right down the middle, but LeMahieu needs to do a better job. And it's going to bring me to my point in the next inning where it's bases loaded, one out, and Taylor Ward, it's a ground ball to third base in the direction of Chisholm Jr., and it goes off of his glove and into the outfield for a 2-run single. Now, this play was a little bit tougher, but one that could have been made. And here's to my point. That's a big 2-run single, make it 3-0 Angels. Is I think when all is said and done, it's probably better to have Jazz at second. He's okay at third. He's not a disaster there, but I think he's probably better at second. Maybe not exponentially. And I'm not even saying move LeMahieu to third. I'm saying have someone else, whether it be a trade acquisition. I just think because LeMahieu's not giving you a great second base and Chisholm's not getting a great third base. So I don't love that combination currently. And I feel like it's kind of being done for LeMahieu because LeMahieu is probably better served at second at this point. So 3-0 Angels, not many chances for the Yankees in this one. They were 0 for 3 runners in scoring position, as they were, I think, in game 3. So games 2 and 3, a bit of, even though the Yankees got on the board in game 3 with a couple of homers, they really didn't do much in either game, game 2 being the uglier one. Ian Hamilton would come on in the 7th inning. Not a great outing for him, although there was an Austin Wells catcher's interference in the middle of that. But still, there was a hit by pitch, just ineffectiveness by Hamilton, eventually leading to an RBI ground out by Nolan Shanuel to make it 4-0 Angels. And then in the 9th, you ended up getting 2 innings of work from Hamilton. And then the 9th, Efros comes on and gives you a scoreless 9th inning with a strikeout. So, we may see Efros again, but it's very clear that he has lost for a while now, like his spot. Like he is someone that kind of goes up and down. I hope it works out for Efros because when they first acquired him, it was someone that you were kind of excited about as a Yankee fan. But for now, I think you may see him more in AAA. Hunter Strickland comes on in the 9th and shuts it down, and the Angels win 4-0. So the scoreless streak and losing streak continues onward. Game 3. The losing streak continues, but the scoreless streak ends. Ryan Yarbrough, a pretty solid outing. 5 1/3 innings, 5 hits, 2 runs, 1 walk, and 3 strikeouts. And 2 solo shots got the best of them, but really was good besides that. And then Jack Kahanowitz, 5 1/3 innings, 2 hits, 2 runs, 3 walks, 8 strikeouts. He as well gave up a couple of solo shots. So kind of similar outings, kind of with some more strikeouts, but they both went 5 1/3 innings, and then the bullpens got to work, and both bullpens did pretty well. In this one, lineup-wise, Ben Rice gets that start at catcher. Giancarlo Stanton would take a seat as far as starting. And then as well, the other person that wouldn't play, I guess, would technically be Austin Wells because Rice would catch. So Wells was an odd man out in this setup. And then also you had Peraza in for LeMahieu at second base. I think that Ascara is in a little bit of trouble as far as playing time, considering the fact that Rice is going to get starts at catcher. But in theory, you could also argue that Wells could lose a little bit of time as well with that, but we'll see. Angels get on the board right away. Shanuel homers, his 5th homer of the year, make it 1-0 in the first inning. But the Yankees finally score a run. Their first run scored since game 2 of the Red Sox series, and it was Jazz Chisholm Jr. with his 10th home run of the year to tie it up at 1. And then the Yankees finally take a lead in the bottom of the 4th. The first time they'd had a lead since the Kansas City series, and it was very, very short-lived, but Cody Bellinger, it's his 10th homer of the year to make it 2-1, but then the first pitch of the 5th, Joe Adell homers off of Ryan Yarbrough, his 14th homer of the year, tied up at 2. So again, like it was the shortest of leads that you could really have. Ties it up at 2, like I said. Yuri De Los Santos would come out on the 6th. let a couple of guys on, and then Mark Lauder Jr. finished at the inning. And again, De Los Santos goes on the IL after the game. Bottom of the sixth, Grisham leadoff walk, Judge strikeout. They bring on the lefty Brock Burke, and this is where Bellinger is given a single, but really it goes off of Grisham. So it's an automatic single. Grisham's ruled out. Kind of carelessness. I mean, maybe carelessness is strong, but Grisham needs to do a better job getting out of the way. Because if he does that, at least Grisham probably gets to second. I think that they then get Bellinger out at first, but maybe you have an opportunity to do something in a situation where Goldschmidt would have been up against the lefty. Now, maybe they would have pitched around him. They would have, but then at that point, then Stanton. Oh no, that's not the. They may have pitched around him for Chisholm. So either way, though, not a good job. And the Yankees only had 3 hits in this game. Chisholm Jr. homer, Bellinger homer, and then the Bellinger single, which really was a ground out. So not good. And then bit of a shaky inning for Leiter Jr., but Cruz is able to kind of come in and get out of that jam. There was a wild pitch that Ben Rice actually got someone caught stealing. It was a pretty good job by Rice. So there was one moment, again, this wild pitch that I think maybe a more seasoned catcher wouldn't have allowed, but it didn't matter because Cruz got a couple of big outs to get him out of there. Then we go to the 8th, and this is where the Angels get their run to win it 3-2. And by the way, Ascar is the one that comes in as Giancarlo Stanton pinch hit the inning before. So Ascar comes in at catcher. Cruz with 3 walks. Mike Trout, Taylor Ward, and then Luis Rengifo with a Logan O'Hoppe strikeout mixed in the middle. And so Tim Hill comes on, which is a tough spot for Tim Hill, who's really good in those base-loaded situations, facing a righty in Joe Adell. But you had to get Cruz out of there. It made sense. And it looked as if Tim Hill got exactly what he needed, which was a potential 6-4-3 double play. However, Anthony Volpe bobbles it, and then so at that point, no double play, and then he doesn't even get anyone out. Then he makes a throwing error on the way to second. Disaster by Anthony Volpe, ends up 3-2. Now, luckily, Hill ends up striking out Lamont Wade Jr. and getting Christian Moore to ground out. So it keeps it at 3-2. But if Volpe fields that cleanly, I really believe that there was a chance there could have been a double play there. That's Volpe's 9th error of the year. So Volpe has been horrendous lately, whether it be offense or defense. And it's unfortunate that Anthony Volpe, he's got the shortstop job locked down for many reasons. The organization loves him. And then also internal competition, there's none of it right now. There just isn't. So, Volpe, he'll do better than what he's doing currently, but I just don't have that strong belief that Anthony Volpe is ever going to be this great, great player that he was hyped up to be. But we'll see. He's young. It's year 3, but I don't love what I'm seeing, and it is frustrating. So, but I'll digress. The Yankees' best chance came in the 8th inning. Ryan Zefferjon, who at this point pitched 3 straight nights. It's a Jason Dominguez walk to start. Then Austin Wells pinch hits and gets hit by a pitch to make it first and second no out. Trent Grisham then at this point almost gets hit on the first pitch, which would have made it bases of no out for Judge. Doesn't hit him, and then it's a foul bunt by Grisham. And then they eventually, after ball 2, take off the bunt, and Grisham pops out to the catcher in foul territory. So very similar to the LeMahieu situation a couple nights prior. They start out with the bunt, it's unsuccessful, and they take it away. And again, it's a lack of execution, which is bad. And it's also kind of a lack of sticking with the plan from the coaching side of things. Really bad and, very disappointing. Then Connor Brogdon comes in with first and second one out. Brogdon doesn't have good numbers and Judge flies out. He hit it well, but he got under it. And then Cody Bellinger pops out. So it keeps it at 3-2. Tim Hill does a nice job in the 9th. 1-2-3 inning, and then Kenley Jansen comes on in the bottom of the 9th, and it starts out all right. Paul Goldschmidt reaches on a throwing error by Luis Rengifo. One of the rare situations where it was a good slide into first. I don't like when players slide into first, but this made sense because it kind of avoided the tag. But it doesn't matter. Chisholm Jr. flies out. Ascara lines out. He actually hit it well, but right at Lamont Wade Jr. And then Anthony Volpe, fittingly, strikes out to end it, swinging as hard as he can. Really bad at bat, and the Yankees lose the series at this point and are on a 6-game losing streak at this point as well. So now we go to game 4. And luckily, the Yankees finally get off the schneid. Carlos Rodon on the mound wasn't great, but he gets the run support. He gets his 9th win of the year. He's now 9-5, 6 innings, 4 hits, 3 runs, 1 walk, 7 strikeouts, 3 solo homers allowed. So don't love that Rodon is giving up the home run ball again, but the good news is they were solo shots. So limiting kind of the big time damage. And I guess you could maybe say, and again, like the tone's different because Rodon got run support. If he didn't, I think it's more of a negative thought. But um, at the same time, like he didn't have a great fastball, and even considering that, he still did kind of a good job to kind of work his way through. Tyler Anderson, the other side for the Angels, did not pitch very well. He loses to go to 2-5, 6 innings, 8 hits, 4 runs, 2 walks, and 4 strikeouts. And by the way, a couple of short rain delays in this game. One that I think occurred in the second inning, and one that occurred in the eighth inning, which may or may not have affected certain things. As far as the lineup goes, the odd men out were Ben Rice and Jason Dominguez in this game. Um, it's interesting at this point. It's funny. I almost feel when the Yankees face a lefty starter, I almost feel better about it than righty starters. But then when it comes to relief pitching, when they bring in those lefties, I don't feel good about that as far as the construction. So it's weird how it works. Unless you have Goldschmidt or Stanton off the bench, more so Goldschmidt, and you could bring him in versus lefty, that's different. It kind of depends on the situation. But Trent Grisham bats ninth in this one, and Trent Grisham actually did really well offensively. Maybe this gets him going because he's been really cool. And maybe the reason he batted ninth, I think, in part was because they were facing a lefty for sure. But still, maybe he's probably better served more towards the bottom of the lineup. And for one of the first times, they have Cody Bellinger batting ahead of Judge, and he ends up with 3 hits. Something to think about moving forward. Because again, we've seen Bellinger more so batting behind Judge, but with Stanton back, it adds a new element where Stanton gave Judge protection. Again, I think Stanton being back there is really going to be a good thing, once the Yankees kind of get out of this slump. But another situation where the Yankees fall behind. So 7 straight games where the opposition takes the lead, and it's a first-inning homer for Mike Trout. His 12th homer of the year gives the Angels 1-0 lead, but the Yankees do tied up in the bottom of the first. Leadoff double Goldschmidt, infield single Bellinger. Judge did strike out with first and third no out, but then Stan gets an RBI ground out on what actually could have been an infield single. Bellinger looked like he was safe at second. They reviewed it, and the call stood. So Bellinger out at second, but the Yankees tied up at 1. Stanton luckily beats it out because if he doesn't beat it out, obviously it's double play and the inning ends with no runs. But Joe Adell homers again, as he did the night before. 15th homer of the year for Adell makes it 2-1 Angels. But the Yankees bounce back after a short rain delay. A pretty fortunate Volpe walk. That was strike 3. But the ump doesn't call it strike 3. But then Wells, it's a double play. So kind of no harm, no foul, actually. Forget about that even. Double play by Wells. LeMahieu 2-out single. And then Trent Grisham with a 2-run homer to make it 3-2. 14th homer of the year. And then the Yankees go back-to-back. Paul Goldschmidt hits his 8th homer of the year, make it 4-2. Yankees have had a knack of that this year. A lot of back-to-back home runs. Right there, it's the 9-hitter and the number 1 hitter in the lineup, making it 4-2. Then Rodon, kind of settles in. Does the job until the 6th, where he allows a homer to Taylor Ward. Opposite field homer, his 19th homer of the year to make it 4-3. So now it's a run game. But a nice job by the bullpen. And there was another base running blunder. First and second, 2 out in the 6th. LeMahieu up, full count. And Austin Wells, the back runner, gets caught. Volpe's the one that ends up being tagged out, but it was Wells' fault. You have to be more aware there. And I'm not sure what he was thinking about, but Anderson was alert, and they end up making the out there. So that continues. That needs to stop. Again, it was a problem. We've seen it be an issue in recent years, and I thought maybe that they were over it. It doesn't seem like they are. Mark Leiter Jr. comes on for the 7th inning and gives the Yankees a 1-2-3 inning, which was a really good job in a 1-run game. So Leiter Jr. picks up his 10th hold of the year. And then the Yankees head on a run in the bottom of the 7th off of Sam Bachman, the righty. And I believe the righty, Bachman. In this situation, let me just confirm that. Yes, he is. 1-out double Trent Grisham, 2-out RBI single Cody Bellinger. Really big. Give the Yankees a little bit more insurance. They did throw Bellinger out at second on that play, but that's all right in that situation. 5-3. Then Jonathan Loaisiga pitches a scoreless 8th inning. So Loaisiga is doing a lot better lately. Like to see that. He picks up the hold, and that would be his fourth hold of the season. Bottom of the eighth, Hector Neris comes on. Aaron Judge catches a break. He should have struck out, but they called it a foul tip. It wasn't. He missed it. And based on his reaction and the catcher's reaction, who I believe at the time might have been Travis d'Arnaud. Yeah, d'Arnaud. That continues, and Judge hits a double. So hey, maybe this is kind of the good luck he needed right there. And then Stanton walks. Then we have a rain delay. Dominguez pinch runs for Stanton. Brock Burke comes out, the lefty, out of the rain delay, and Chisholm Jr. drops down a beautiful bunt single. Just makes it the shame as far as the first game of the series. Then Volpe gets an RBI ground that it was hit too softly, so they have to just take that at first, makes it 6-3. Then Austin Wells with a sac fly makes it 7-3. Austin Wells is the most sac flies in the American League, and the Yankees are the most sac flies in the American League. Wells, I think, was 7. So, he does a pretty good job of situational hitting. I'll certainly give him that. With it being a 4-run game, they go to Devin Williams. If they had made it a 5-run game, they would have went to Ian Hamilton, but they go with Devin, and he strikes out the side. There was a hit by pitch in the middle of that, but he strikes out the side. Not a save, as it was a 4-run game, but the Yankees win 7-3, and at this point improved to 43-31. Needed this badly. And now let's preview the Orioles-Yankees series. Now, as I'm recording this, the Orioles have yet to play their last game of the series against the Rays. From a Yankee standpoint, you want the Orioles to win, but given the pitching matchup, Charlie Morton versus Drew Rasmussen, don't like the Orioles' chances at all in Tampa. So thinking there's a good chance the Orioles lose that one. It would have been nice for the Yankees to face this version of Charlie Morton, who's been really bad. He's at the end of the line. But here's what it is. First game is really the best pitching matchup. It's Tomoyuki Sugano against Max Fried. Sugano pitched probably his best outing of the season against the Yankees earlier in the year. The Orioles took 2 out of 3 from the Yankees in Baltimore. Sugano, not a strikeout guy, but he ended up in, what was it? The line was 5 innings against the Yanks with 8 strikeouts, which was by far the most strikeouts he had all season long. So, and honestly, really since then, he's done pretty well. Like going into that, like the numbers really weren't, they actually weren't terrible, but I think he's been kind of a bright spot in what has been a really poor rotation. So that's a good matchup. And Max Fried, of course, who's been one of the best pitchers in baseball. But still looking at that matchup and saying, hopefully with Fried on the mound, the Yankees can win. Game 2 will be Zach Eflin against Clark Schmidt. Clark Schmidt has been very good lately. ERA down to 3.16. Zach Eflin has been a tough go for him this year. 4.81 ERA. He's not a guy that gets many strikeouts. Maybe the numbers are a little misleading because the whip isn't terrible. What that tells me is he's probably giving him a solid amount of homers, and that seems to be the case. 12 homers allowed for Eflin. So that's game 2. And then game 3, an 11:30 a.m. start. It's a Roku game. It's the one Roku game the Yankees are in this year. The Yankees actually last year were in a Roku game against the Orioles, which ended up very badly. That was, I believe, the last game before the All-Star break. It was a disaster. That was the Volpe Verdugo fuck up defensively with Clay Holmes on the mound. That was in Baltimore. This is a Yankee Stadium, and it's Dean Kramer against Will Warren. Dean Kramer, also a pretty high ERA, not great numbers. All these Oriole pitchers are not strikeout pitchers. We'll see what that means as far as the series goes with the Yankees. And Will Warren, he's on the mound for the Yanks, and he actually pitched against Sugano in Baltimore, and Warren did not pitch well. But he's been a lot better since, right? He was kind of a different pitcher at that point, right? That was like late April, I believe. And so, Warren's going to look to kind of continue what he's done, which has been pitching really well besides that Dodger blow up. That was the one really bad outing for him. So, Yankees taking on the last place team in the division. However, they lost 2 of 3 of the Orioles earlier on. The Yankees have really struggled against the AL East. They're 8-11. So, look, realistically, I'm just hoping, and the Yankees have not been playing well lately. I'm hoping that they can just take 2 of 3 and you kind of just live to fight another day. So things are getting closer in the division. The Yankees, again, the struggles did continue, but they do win the last game of the series. They lose the series 3, they lose 3-4 to the Angels at Yankee Stadium, and they will finish the homestand with the Baltimore Orioles coming to town.